What's up, family? Thank you so much for tuning in to the channel today. So, as you know, today we're going to talk about healing the inner child. So, many of you already know I'm in therapy. Not only do I have one therapist, I have two. You got to have a backup, all right? And I'm not ashamed of that at all. The one thing I do want to start off with today is a poem. And this poem is titled, Who Will Cry? Who will cry for the little boy, lost and all alone? Who will cry for the little boy, abandoned without his own? Who will cry for the little boy who cried himself to sleep? Who will cry for the little boy who never had for keeps? Who will cry for the little boy who walked the burning sand? Who will cry for the boy inside the man? Who will cry for the little boy who knew well hurt and pain? Who will cry for the little boy who died and died again? Who will cry for the little boy, a good boy he tried to be? Who will cry for the little boy who cries inside of me? This poem was written by Antwone Fisher, and if any of you have seen the Antwone Fisher movie, you know that Derek Luke recites this poem with Denzel Washington. And actually, Antwone Fisher and my mom are really good friends. We call him Fish. And we actually went to his wedding about 20 years ago, which is so cool. But one of the things that I want to talk about is all of us have deep childhood experiences. Some good, some bad, some a combination. But regardless of what your experiences were, there is a part of you that still has a need. There is a little boy or a little girl inside of you that is still seeking something. So, in my therapy session today, honestly, I wanted to talk about what's been going on in the last year of my life with like work and my sister passing away and dealing with grief and my own health issues and blah, 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 blah. And he was like, do you mind if I offer a suggestion? I'm like, absolutely. You know, you're a professional. Help me. That's why I'm here. And he said, you know what? Let's get in a time machine and go all the way back to like 1990, 1992. And I'm like, ooh, I already got that feeling in my stomach. Okay, let's go there. And we did. And what I took from that, and I want to share that with you all today, is you cannot heal the inner child. I mean, you cannot heal the adult unless you heal the inner child. So I can't heal the 43-year-old version of Stacy unless I go back to that 10-year-old, that 8-year-old, that 12-year-old. And I recognize that today. So I'll be candid and just share some of my own personal experience is that there was a time, many times in my life where I didn't feel like I was enough. There were times in my life where I didn't feel like I was protected. And actually I wasn't. And I carry my own guilt. I carry my own shame, behind those things for not using my voice. And so that was something in my last video, I kind of talked about blame and judgment and all those kinds of things. And I get down on myself for not confronting things and people. And I told that to my therapist. I said, I even have dreams where, I'm not fighting. I'm not using my voice. I'm not protecting myself. Why am I not doing that? And he said something to me that I've heard before because I work in child welfare. Like, I'm trauma informed. I get it. But it was something about when he said it, it changed everything for me today. And I feel like it's going to change me for the rest of my life. I hope that it's also something that heals you. But what he mentioned to me is that we all have, you and I, we have relational strategies. What is a relational strategy? If you're in a relationship with a man or a woman, like a romantic one, a marriage, or you're in a relationship with your siblings, cousins, uncle, mom, dad, whoever it is, you have a strategy to survive in that relationship. There are certain things that you will do or not do to stay safe. And I'm like, okay. So what that inner child is, if you're 5 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, is they know what to do. but they also need to be protected. So there's the dilemma, right? So we all have relational strategies. So what this had me thinking about is, because I love Black history, is Harriet Tubman. And when Harriet Tubman was leading the slaves through the Underground Railroad. Now, you can do your research on all of this. I'm not going to tell you everything. But I will say there were certain things that they did or didn't do to remain safe. Now, remember, if you're a person of color, you want to remember that these things are generational. So one of their relational strategies was silence. In order for them to make it through, they had to be quiet. They lost their voice. In order for them to make it through, they had to hide, hence the Underground Railroad. These were not just adults. There were children down there. There were babies down there. How do you keep a baby silent? You might not want to know, but I'm going to tell you. One of the relational strategies was they had to sedate them in a way. They gave them alcohol. Okay, that was one way. And they had to do that in order to stay safe. It was a form of, and I heard T.D. Jakes' daughter, Sarah Jakes, preach about something called self-preservation. So their relational strategy was self-preservation. In order to survive that, we had to do this. Now, this is the tricky thing about relational strategies and self-preservation, and I'm thinking about myself with this, is what we used in one situation to remain safe can harm us in another situation, right? So a butterfly, for example, goes into the cocoon. It has to go into the cocoon before it becomes a butterfly. The caterpillar goes in the cocoon, turns into a butterfly, right? It needs that cocoon to develop. But if it stays in the cocoon too long, it dies. So the very thing that is used to give life can also give death, right? So the thing that we use to preserve us and protect us in one situation can actually harm us in another. And so that was just real deep for me today, because I went back to that child and I hugged her and I told her that I loved her and I told her that I was proud of her for keeping herself safe. As an adult, I thought it was weakness. But now I see it's actually intelligence. And that's the way God created us all. He created us all to survive something. So if you struggle with that, like you see I am right now, obviously, I want you to go to Matthew 11:28 through 30. And this is what the Lord says. He says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest in your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So my prayer is really that you go back and give yourself what it is that you think you needed during that time. That you go back and visit that little boy or that little girl. And then love yourself for who you are today. Because God uses everything, good and bad. It made you who you are today. And then finally, please consider therapy. You know, I actually got dressed and put makeup on and all that for my therapy session today, because I'm like, I'm ready to heal on a whole lot of levels. And it's an investment in me. And they say that mental health is going to be prioritized over physical health soon. And actually had a doctor tell me once that your mental health and your physical health are connected. When you struggle mentally, you're going to struggle physically. When something's going on in the body physically, you're going to struggle mentally. And when you're struggling spiritually, all those things can be out of whack, right? So I want you to consider, remember, being brave is being willing to get the help that you need. And then always, always, always reach back and help somebody else. God bless you.